Okay, take two. Good morning. I streamed earlier this morning and started talking and got sucked into the neon beyond, distracted, totally forgot what I was talking about. That didn't work at all. So, I'll talk about it now. I just got COVID, tested positive yesterday, and thought, life's short. I should speak my mind, say what I want to say. So here's where I am after 6 weeks after I got baptized and trying to make sense of a new Christian lifestyle. Not making a lot of sense out of it, but trying. So yeah, I recently converted. Spent my whole life identifying as, I'm a rationalist, atheist, materialist, humanist, whatever you want to call it, and not being a fan of faith in general, thinking, well, that's silly. You follow evidence. Evidence is good. Faith is a nonsensical concept. But somehow I ended up a Christian anyway. It's not that after years and years of arguing with Christians, which I have done a lot of in my life, I finally encountered some sort of amazing argument for God's existence. Political arguments all to try and prove God exists or anything like that, I'll still kind of suck. There's nothing there. But I had mystical experience where God revealed himself to me personally. Logical arguments be damned, so I gotta take that into account. So I'm very grateful, really, for that, because I was always kind of resented that God expected us to believe without, actual evidence to go off of. It seems wrong to insist that somebody believe something without anything to back it up, especially when the thing you're asking somebody to believe is a pretty big deal. You want to make sure it's true first, and it would be nice to have some sort of confirmation. And I'm lucky, I guess, because most people do not get a personal revelation, and I did, so that's good. Now I just kind of try to make sense of Christianity, which I always thought was complete nonsense, but now have to start from a place that there's something there, some kernel of truth in there. Honestly, still seems kind of nonsensical, so I'm trying to sift through it. God revealed himself to me. I'd be a fool to ignore that. So I have to approach the world from the starting point that there's something there. Something Jesus Christ, his teachings, But what exactly is that? What are those teachings? Coming to all sorts of specific beliefs, and it's hard to figure out. People have been trying to do it for a long time, but I'm trying. Yeah, the problem is, like, I had this personal revelation, which, thanks God for that, that was great, but didn't include some detailed notes on, here's the correct doctrine, here are the specific things that you should believe are true. It was just, God is real. Okay. Start from there. So I'm left trying to figure out, okay, what are my specific beliefs beyond that? First of all, I can't believe that the Bible is literally true or inerrant. It's not possible. It contradicts itself. That seems like a big deal. You can't take things as being exact, truthful, perfect accounts of something, because I mean, if you look, there's 4 different gospels, and they all say different stuff about exactly how things go down. You know, Mary gets to the tomb. Is the stone rolled away? Is it not rolled away yet? Is the angel sitting on top? Is the angel in the tomb? Like, all these details contradict each other in these different accounts, but at the same time, the overall story is the same. But there are those contradictions, so you gotta approach the Bible with the idea that it's not perfect. That some dudes wrote their thoughts down, but it's their thoughts, and they may have screwed some things up. But hopefully it didn't screw too much up. Might be tempting to think that, well, surely stuff that's important, important doctrinal questions, care would be taken to get those things right. But the Bible gives us a lot of reasons not to think that. Notably, it depicts Jesus' biggest followers getting some big things wrong, like from the start. They sit around arguing with each other over who's the greatest. And clearly they were not getting the message. So you'd like to think that they would diligently transcribe exactly what God wanted them to, but it doesn't seem likely that that's what they did. So we gotta do some deciphering on it, and try and figure out, okay, well, some details might not be accurate, but what's the core truth in there that is, maybe something that we can trust as being accurate, because it's the core of the message. Surely that's right. And look at modern Christians. I think, well, have we gotten any better? Like, have we improved since the ancient Christians, as far as like figuring it out? It doesn't seem like it. I want to argue that the ancient Christians, the first ones, had everything right, because they definitely didn't. But it sure seems like we've only gotten off track rather than gradually improving things. Seems like we're far worse at accurately interpreting Christ's teachings. Of course, to really know that, you have to know what Christ's teachings are, which is impossible to do fully. You gotta rely on the Bible. It's, it's not a perfect account. It's translated. It's difficult to understand. You might think you know and be wrong. But there do seem to be some core ideas in there that are like, well, this you can feel pretty confident about because it's stressed a lot. There's some things where it's like you have one verse with a strange interpretation and want to jump on that and build a whole doctrine out of it. But there's a lot of things that are mentioned a lot and in very strong language. So I'm trying to focus on what are those things and not get tied up in the things that are peripheral. It seems like this is not where Christianity is today. Christianity today seems obsessed with beliefs that are kind of diametrically opposed to the core teachings. That have the flimsiest scriptural backing. People just freak out about me being trans, despite the Bible in Galatians 3:23-29. It just says that there is no more male and female. Just straight up abolishes gender. But people are still freaking out about gender. And making that a very important thing. It's critical to make sure that trans people are not allowed because Jesus says no. And that just doesn't seem like a core teaching. He didn't really seem to talk about it much. So I don't know why people are so gung-ho on that. Likewise, we've got Christians banning abortion. The Bible specifically says, like, hey, women need to get abortions if their lives are in danger. And it always talks about life coming with breath. The breath of life, not just, having a heartbeat is alive. So the Bible doesn't really seem... Okay. I got disconnected there. Don't know what happened, but I'm back. Yeah, the Bible seems pro-abortion, yet people seem to make opposing abortion be a core Christian doctrine. When you look at the things that actually are really stressed and like spoken about very strongly, like the radical commands to love your neighbor as yourself, and love your enemies, and give away all of your earthly possessions, and trust God to provide you with everything you need from day to day. Suddenly it's like, oh, let's interpret. This is a gray area. We can't really stress that stuff. And that's frustrating. Like, you look in the Bible, Jesus commands us to give away everything we have. Have complete faith. God will provide our food and shelter. Just trust Him to provide for us like He does for the birds and the bees. But we don't do that. That seems like a pretty big ask. You have to really have a lot of faith to think that. So we hoard material things, and we live in fear of how we'll survive day to day in a system of exploitation. It's pretty much custom designed to be as difficult to sustain ourselves in as possible. He commands us to love our enemies and forgive them 70 times 7 times. But we've built a society that defaults to military aggression to resolve conflicts, incarcerates millions of people with draconian punishments and torture. It just doesn't seem to embody that spirit at all. And like, these are things that should be like, well, clearly this is a piece of doctrine like we can feel pretty secure on. Like, Jesus is all about forgiveness, peacefulness. But instead, Christians tend to be pro-war. Don't mind it at all. It seems a little weird. Like, everybody knows these radical commands. Like, they're well known. You know, this is what Jesus says to do. But somehow it's become acceptable theology to take a stance that amounts to saying, like, well, sure, he said that, but come on, that's so extreme. You can't be expected to actually do it. Like, it's okay. Just live a normal life. Leave that stuff to the monks. Leave all that to, you just live your life. Don't worry about it. The Bible doesn't really seem to support the idea that committing to a radical Christian lifestyle is an instruction like that was only intended for some specific class of people. Seems more like we're all called, and while we're forgiven for failing to live up to these expectations, we're still expected to try with all our hearts. Like, in Acts, we see the early Christian community. They all saw this command as, a real thing that they should be focused on. They sell all their property, give it to the church, give the proceeds to the church, the community, because that's what they were called to do. They don't just say, well, that's too hard, I'm not going to do it. And it even mentions, like, hey, here's 2 people who just slightly deviated. They kept a little bit of the money for themselves. Didn't go all out in following this message, and just like, boom, they're just struck dead when they fail to commit fully. which seems harsh, but also seems a signal that, God's pretty serious about this command, and that everybody should be following it. We're called to lead a holy life, even though there's no longer that disciplinarian or guardian of the law that Paul talks about in Galatians 3:24, lording our infractions over us. Like, you're forgiven, you're no longer doing your actions in fear of, oh, if I don't do this, I'll burn in hell, because you've been forgiven. Great. But you are still expected to try to follow the rules, even, when there isn't that threat looming over your head. And we haven't been at all. Like, people just aren't doing that. Myself included, mind you. Like, not trying to say that I do this. I don't. Like, I can believe in my academic, theological brain. Well, it's clear. God says, do this. I'm not doing it. I should do it. And, that's tough to grapple with. It's not even like things that I'm trying really hard to do and just falling short. I mean, I'm not even attempting. I don't have some plan for giving away all my possessions and following these commands. It's just seems so unfeasible, and I just don't think that my faith is strong enough to do that. Then again, like, how can I claim to actually believe in God if I'm saying, oh yeah, I believe God's real, God says do this, but I'm not going to do it? That seems weird to do. And yeah, I don't really think I have that level of faith. I'd like to, but I don't. But I can't deny I am commanded to do that. I'm coming up short. The question then has to be, well, how do I fix that? Coming up short. I should be trying not to. It seems like there's two options. One, I can try to strengthen my faith through prayer or study or who knows, and hope that eventually it's strong enough that I can take that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to trust God for everything and live some radical lifestyle. That seems really difficult. I am trying to do that, but it does seem hard. Or I could try to change society so that the human society I live in has enough of a guaranteed safety net for anyone to survive without worry. That the Bible says we should just have faith in God. God's gonna provide for us no matter what, if we just trust Him. That's really hard to do, but it would be a lot easier to do if you could see day to day the society that you live in has these structures set up that will do it already. We'll provide for your needs and make sure that you can survive and keep going. No God required. It'd be a lot easier to trust that and then and make that leap of trusting God. I mean, you can't trust society fully, but it's at least tangible in there to see day to day. So I kind of think that should be like the focus for Christians. We need to understand that we're called to do something we're not doing, and that should bother us. And we should want to change the world we live in to make it as easy as possible to do the thing that we are called to do, so that we can do it. That's where I think we should be. Currently, there's a huge push from conservative Christians to build a Christian government according to their vision of Christianity, which is one that embraces vindictive punishment, individualism, exclusion, things that don't really seem Christ-like at all, but ignoring the central messages of forgiveness and community and love. So I think it's our duty to counter this push with our own vision of what a Christian society that actually embraces Christ's teachings, what does that look like? And I think that's an extensive topic, but some places maybe we could start. Seems like there's a central myth in American politics, certainly. Seems common elsewhere as well, that helping people in any kind of program or system that is set up to help people, to provide something to people for free of charge to them, that just improves their life, that should be guarded. And we say, wait, do you qualify? Are you deserving of this help? Every aid program, welfare, or SNAP or anything like that, it's always means tested. They have all of this bureaucracy to make it both really difficult to get the help, but also to try and restrict the help is only available to this very small group, and you can, if you have too much, then you disqualify for that. And that's just permeates everything in our political society, and it's inherently just completely un-Christian. Jesus says that we should be servants to all. It's not that it's not good to focus your energy on those who are suffering the most. That is a good thing. But trying to only help the worst off. That's just not necessary. We're supposed to help everybody, even our worst enemies. We're supposed to love them too. So the question of, is somebody deserving of some help, whatever that help might be, should just be right off the table for Christians. That should be like just a toxic idea that we don't want anything to do with, that we avoid at all costs. Anytime we're considering helping people, we should just help anyone who wants the help, and not worry about, oh, what if this person who doesn't really need it gets the help? That's just not the way we're supposed to operate. That would be a good first step for a Christian society, is if we just wholeheartedly rejected the idea of needing to deserve help. Second, we should make our society one that is as easy as possible to follow Christ's teachings. Like, we're called to do something. We look at society and we go, oh man, that seems really hard. I don't think I can do that. Like, it's overwhelming. How could I possibly live that kind of life when I know I'm on my own in this society, and there's not a lot there for me, if I don't, ensure it's there through my own actions. I'm expected to be an individual who is self-sufficient and doesn't need my community, and that's not a Christian idea. We're supposed to need each other, and not supposed to be able to live as an individual outside of a community. We're supposed to need community and want community. So it seems to me, this is kind of the same as the first thing I was saying, but our society should make it so easy, like if we want it to be a Christian society, or at least a society, it could be a secular society, but if we want, if our values are Christian, and in a democracy we're allowed to express our values, and try and turn them into action, then we should be embodying those values with whatever actions we choose to make as a society. So we should be trying to make society so easy to live in, so free to live in, that somebody who is following Christ's teachings and who gives away everything they have and just lives day to day trusting God to provide, will find that God provides through a robust social safety net that is providing for every single material need, housing, food, water. People are just so secure in those things that they don't have to worry about any amount of personal effort. Oh my God, if I don't take care of this, then I might not have those things, because people would just feel, oh, society's going to make sure I have those things. I can trust that. Of course, we're supposed to trust God, because His power is is limitless with enough faith. And we're supposed to just do it even in this, no matter what our society is. Trust him anyway. But it doesn't seem like any of us are actually doing that. Because we just don't have that much faith. Should make it easier. So that, ordinary levels of faith are enough. And of course, the third thing, we need to stop spending all of our resources on death and destruction. Whether it's a massive military budget or a massive budget for police and prisons. Bombing and imprisoning people is not loving them. And, I mean, just all of our wars and draconian mass incarceration policies, they just don't fit with a mindset that loves our enemies. If you love your enemy, then you want to be safe from them, so maybe you need to defend yourself against them, but you're not vindictive. You don't enjoy getting vengeance, inflicting punishment and pain. So certainly prisons, if they should exist at all, should not be geared towards making the experience as awful as possible. That's not a Christian mindset. Christian mindset says this person, even if you think, oh my gosh, they did this unspeakable crime, I don't want them to be hurting. It says, no, you love them, and you want what's best for them anyway, and so we just need just complete sea change of how we view crime and punishment, both on the personal level and like on the national level with war. Should not be something that we jump to. And I think that we should not be afraid to identify these things as Christian doctrines. I think I get very frustrated with Christians talking about politics and trying to keep their Christianity non-political, when it is very political. Like everything Jesus is asking us to do is a very radical political idea, and it doesn't. It's like we have people who are willing to get really fired up about, really stressing God's wrathful side, talking about Sodom, for example, and people will talk about it as a reason why they need to be militant on some restriction on gay people or trans people or whatever it might be. But when the Bible talks about Sodom, it actually explicitly names, here's what Sodom's crime was. And it doesn't say there was men having sex with men, and that just pissed God off too much. It says there were people who had everything, had full stomachs, and their needs met, but who did not share. And that is what brought about God's wrath. And it seems like, well, it did. Bible says this did bring about God's wrath, so we should have strong feelings about it. But the only people who have strong feelings about it are those who interpret it as strictly talking about homosexuality. People will say, this is why, we must exclude homosexual people. And then when, there are some maybe who recognize that this is not what it's about. The Bible says it's actually about not sharing when you have plenty. But we don't take that same fire and brimstone kind of righteous anger on the subject, we don't feel as strongly like, we should exclude rich people then. Rich people should be seen as, heathens, infidels, whatever, people who are not living out a Christian life. Because they aren't. They got plenty and they're not sharing. This is what triggers God's wrath, is having plenty and not sharing. And it seems like maybe we should start having that sort of disdain for Christian rich people, and should really focus on how it's harder for a rich person to get into heaven than a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And just shift all of that very negative energy that the church has for their idea of sodomy, queerness, or other things that just are not important. We should shift that focus and that righteous anger to who God has that kind of righteous anger for, and that's rich people who don't share. We should look down on them. We should still love them and try and convince them to start sharing. But it shouldn't be something we avoid talking about. If people are willing to have these difficult conversations where they think, I don't think you're living up to what God wants you to do to somebody who's breaking some alleged command about sexuality from God. Why can't we have those conversations with people who are not living up to the actual important commands of loving our neighbors, sharing with our community? I don't know. I think I've rambled enough. I'm running out of things to say, so I will leave it at that. Thanks for listening.